Right, listen up, you Muppets, because what I'm about to show you is absolutely disgusting. You've got someone who's just served you a rejection so cold it could freeze a bloody kitchen, and now, they have the audacity to come sniffing around like a lost dog checking if you're still waiting by the door. This is emotional cuisine at its most pathetic. They push you away like a burnt souffle, then have the nerve to test if you're still sitting there like some desperate diner waiting for scraps. It's like a chef throwing your meal in the bin, then peeking through the window to see if you're still hungry enough to come crawling back for the leftovers. The sheer arrogance of it. They reject you with all the finesse of a sledgehammer through a wedding cake, then start their little testing games because, get this, they want to make sure their emotional backup plan is still bloody well available. It's like keeping expired ingredients in the fridge just in case the fresh ones don't work out. This behavior is so raw, so uncooked, so absolutely tragic that it makes my head spin. They want their cake and to eat it too, keeping you on standby like some poor sod waiting for a table that might never come available. Well, buckle up because I'm about to expose every single one of their pathetic little tricks. Chapter 1: The Pathetic Breadcrumb Service. Right, let me tell you what these absolute donuts are serving up. It's the most pathetic breadcrumb service I've ever seen in my life. They reject you like you're a burnt piece of toast, then come back dropping crumbs so small you need a bloody magnifying glass to see them. It's like a restaurant serving you 1 grain of rice and calling it a meal. Absolutely tragic. Look at this disaster of a text message. Hey, how are you? At 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. What is that? That's not communication, that's emotional fast food, cheap, nasty, and leaves you feeling sick afterward. They've got the nerve to send you the equivalent of a stale breadcrumb and expect you to be grateful for the attention. It's like serving day-old bread and calling it artisanal. And the timing. Oh, the timing is absolutely disgraceful. They wait just long enough for you to start moving on, then bam! They slide into your DMs like a greasy short-order cook trying to salvage yesterday's leftovers. They're testing the waters with all the subtlety of a meat cleaver through a soufflé. Watch how they do it. They send these pathetic little signals that mean absolutely nothing. A like on your photo from 3 weeks ago, an emoji reaction to your story. It's like garnishing an empty plate and calling it fine dining. They want to see if you'll respond to their microscopic effort like some starving customer grateful for any attention. The most infuriating part? They act like they're doing you a favor. Like their measly breadcrumb is some kind of Michelin-starred experience. They test your availability with the same energy a lazy prep cook uses to check if yesterday's vegetables are still good. Minimal effort, maximum selfishness. These Muppets have turned emotional manipulation into a bargain basement buffet. They're serving up the scraps of their attention and watching to see if you'll eat it up like you've been fasting for weeks. It's absolutely shameful. They want to keep you hungry while they decide if they can be bothered to cook you a proper meal. The random phone call that lasts exactly 30 seconds. The accidental text meant for someone else. The casual mention of something you both enjoyed dropped into conversation like a poison pill in a perfectly good soup. They're testing if you'll bite on their pathetic bait like some desperate fish who hasn't eaten in weeks. And what's their game plan here? They want to see if you'll come running back with the enthusiasm of a golden retriever who's just heard the dinner bell. They're measuring your response time like they're timing a bloody soufflé. Too quick and they know you're still hooked, too slow and they panic that their backup plan is slipping away. The absolute audacity of serving you rejection with one hand while keeping the other hand ready to reel you back in. It's like a chef who burns your steak, kicks you out of the restaurant, then stands at the window watching to see if you're still hungry enough to come back for more punishment. These people wouldn't last 5 minutes in a real kitchen with this kind of half-hearted, pathetic service. Chapter 2: The Stalking Special of the Day. Oh, for crying out loud. Now we've got the stalking special, and it's the most disgusting dish I've ever seen served up in the relationship kitchen. These absolute weapons think they're being clever, lurking around your digital life like some creepy line cook hiding behind the walk-in freezer. It's like having a chef who throws your meal away, then spends the entire night peering through the kitchen window to see what you're eating instead. They're watching your every bloody move on social media like their head chef monitoring the pass. Every story you post, every picture you share, every sign that you might be moving on. They're cataloging it all like some obsessed food critic taking notes for a review nobody asked for. It's pathetic. They've turned into emotional paparazzi, documenting your life from the shadows while pretending they've moved on to better restaurants. Look at this absolute madness. They're checking if you're still posting sad songs, if you're out with friends, if there's any sign of another person in your life. They're conducting surveillance like they're running a bloody MI5 operation, instead of just admitting they made a catastrophic mistake. It's like a chef throwing away a perfect ribeye, then spending all night checking the bin to see if anyone else has discovered their waste. The Facebook stalking, the Instagram lurking, the LinkedIn visits. Who the hell checks someone's LinkedIn after rejecting them? What are they looking for to see if you've updated your relationship status to emotionally devastated by a complete muppet? It's like obsessively reading TripAdvisor reviews after you've already poisoned half your customers. And here's the kicker. They're doing all this detective work while pretending they don't care. They've got more intel on your daily activities than a bloody Secret Service agent. But ask them directly and suddenly they haven't thought about you. It's like claiming you don't know how to cook while you're standing in a 5-star kitchen wearing a chef's hat. They're monitoring your emotional temperature like a sous chef, obsessively checking if the hollandaise is ready, waiting for the perfect moment to swoop back in. They want to see if you're healing, if you're dating, if you're still pining away like some tragic character in a soap opera. It's emotional reconnaissance at its most tragic level. The screenshot investigations, the mutual friend interrogations. They're building a dossier on your post-rejection life that would make MI6 jealous. They know what you had for breakfast, who you're following, and whether you've been listening to happy music or crying into your pillow. It's like having a stalker with a culinary degree, technically skilled, but absolutely unhinged. What they're really doing is taste testing their own regret. Every glimpse of you moving forward is like sampling a dish they threw away, wondering if they made the biggest mistake of their pathetic lives. But instead of being honest about their buyer's remorse, they lurk in the digital shadows like emotional vampires feeding off glimpses of your recovery. Chapter 3. The Temperature Probe Technique. Bloody hell. Now we're looking at the temperature probe technique, and it's more invasive than a health inspector with a grudge. These absolute muppets think they're being subtle, but they're about as discreet as a fire alarm in a library. They want to check if you're still warm for them without actually having the balls to ask directly. It's like trying to test if the oven's hot by sending your grandmother to stick her hand in it. Watch how these cowards operate. They use mutual friends like human thermometers. Oh, how's Sarah doing these days? They ask your best mate, like they're some casual acquaintance instead of the person who just served you an emotional disaster on a silver platter. It's like asking the waiter about the daily special after you've already sent it back to the kitchen for being absolutely disgusting. The indirect questioning, the casual mentions. They're fishing for information with all the finesse of a drunk person trying to fillet a salmon. I heard Sarah got a promotion. No, you didn't hear anything. You searched for that information like a bloodhound tracking down a missing ingredient. They're conducting emotional reconnaissance through your social circle like they're running some kind of amateur spy operation. And the group hangouts. Oh, this is where it gets truly pathetic. They suddenly develop a burning interest in group activities they never cared about before, just so they can observe you in your natural habitat. It's like a chef who's been banned from the kitchen trying to sneak back in during the dinner rush to see if anyone misses their terrible cooking. They're reading your body language like a sommelier analyzing wine, checking if you're still bitter, if you've developed any sweetness toward them, if there's any hint that their vintage rejection might be aging well in your emotional cellar. The way they position themselves at these gatherings, always just close enough to gauge your temperature, but never close enough to get burned by their own stupidity. The manufactured emergencies, suddenly they need help with something only you can provide. Their computer's broken, they need advice about their career, they're having a crisis that coincidentally requires your specific expertise. It's like claiming you need a master chef to help you boil water. Transparent, desperate, and absolutely insulting to everyone's intelligence. They create these testing scenarios like they're conducting a bloody science experiment. Let's see how Sarah reacts when I mention that restaurant we used to go to. What is this emotional chemistry class? They're treating your feelings like ingredients in some twisted recipe, measuring your responses to determine if their emotional soufflé still has a chance of rising. The absolute nerve of using your friends as kitchen spies. They're turning your support system into their personal intelligence network, asking probing questions disguised as casual conversation. It's like bribing the waitstaff to tell you what the customers really think about your cooking. Sneaky, underhanded, and completely lacking in professional integrity. Chapter 4. The Comeback Tour. Nobody asked for. Right, here comes the pièce de résistance, the comeback tour that absolutely nobody ordered. These emotional disasters have the timing of a drunk line cook trying to coordinate a 7-course meal. They disappear like smoke when things get real, then reappear with the precision of a Swiss watch when you're at your most vulnerable. It's like a restaurant that closes during dinner rush and only opens when you're desperately hungry at 3 a.m. Look at this tragic timing. They show up right when you're having a rough week, when you've posted something that suggests you're struggling, when the emotional door might be cracked open just enough for their pathetic comeback attempt. They've been watching from the sidelines like vultures circling a wounded animal, waiting for the perfect moment to swoop in with their half-hearted revival tour. The birthday messages, the holiday texts, the thinking of you during this difficult time, garbage that arrives exactly when your defenses are down. It's like a chef who only offers free samples when you haven't eaten all day. Calculated, manipulative, and absolutely shameless. They're emotional opportunists, striking when your resistance is at its lowest point. And the audacity of their approach. They slide back into your life like they never left, like their rejection was just some minor kitchen mishap instead of a full-scale emotional food poisoning incident. Hey, stranger. Stranger? You're not a stranger. You're the Muppet who served them their walking papers and then had the nerve to check if they were still hungry for more punishment. They timed their return like a bad sequel nobody wanted, showing up just when you thought the story was over, bringing all the same problems with none of the character development. It's like a restaurant that poisoned you, closed down for renovations, then reopened with the same contaminated ingredients and a fresh coat of paint. The seasonal patterns. Christmas, Valentine's Day, your birthday. Suddenly they develop selective amnesia about why they left and remember only the good times. They're like fair weather chefs who only cook when the kitchen's already warm, disappearing the moment any real heat or pressure enters the picture. The "I've been thinking about us" speech that arrives conveniently when they're lonely, bored, or their other options have fallen through. It's not thinking, it's emotional meal planning, figuring out if their backup dinner is still available when their first choice restaurant is fully booked. They reappear with all the fanfare of a traveling circus, expecting you to be grateful for their return engagement. The sheer arrogance of assuming their comeback tour will be met with standing ovations instead of the rotten tomatoes it deserves. They've turned emotional manipulation into dinner theater. Dramatic, predictable, and leaving everyone with a bad taste in their mouth. These Muppets think they can waltz back in like returning celebrities, but they're more like reality TV has-beens desperately trying to stay relevant. Their timing isn't romantic, it's predatory, calculated, and absolutely disgusting in its transparent desperation. Chapter 5. The Insurance Policy Plate Up. Right. Here's the final service, and it's the most pathetic insurance policy I've ever seen in my entire culinary career. These absolute donkeys have turned you into their emotional backup generator, sitting there on standby in case their main power source fails. It's like keeping expired ingredients in the walk-in freezer just in case the fresh delivery doesn't show up. Absolutely disgraceful planning. Look at this tragic business model they're running. They reject you like you're a burnt Yorkshire pudding, but they can't bring themselves to throw you in the bin completely because, get this, they might need you later. It's like a chef who sends back a perfectly good piece of equipment but keeps it in storage just in case. Their shiny new toy breaks down. The audacity, they need to know you're still there like a security blanket made of pure desperation. Your continued availability is their emotional insurance policy against the terrifying possibility that they might have actually made a mistake. It's like keeping a backup parachute while jumping out of planes, except in this case, you're the parachute they discarded but want to make sure is still functional. The psychological disaster happening in their heads is absolutely mind-boggling. They're running a restaurant where they've thrown away the best dish on the menu but keep checking the bin to make sure it hasn't been taken by someone else. They want the comfort of knowing their rejected meal is still there, waiting patiently in case they develop an appetite for it again. This isn't love. This is emotional hoarding at its most pathetic level. They're collecting reassurance like a hoarder, collecting newspapers, stacking up evidence that you're still interested just in case their current situation goes belly up. It's like keeping a spare tire that you've already punctured. Completely useless, but somehow comforting to have around. And here's the truly infuriating part. They test your availability because deep down they know they've served up the worst decision of their lives. Every little check-in, every casual probe, every temperature test is their trauma response screaming, "What have we done?" But instead of admitting their mistake like adults, they keep you on ice like emotional leftovers. They're running their relationships like the world's worst inventory management system. Better keep Sarah interested just in case this other thing doesn't work out. What kind of emotional stockpiling is that? It's like a restaurant that keeps rotten vegetables, just because they might be desperate enough to use them during a supply shortage. The tragic truth? Their testing behavior isn't about you at all. It's about their own terror of being alone with their catastrophic decision-making skills. They need to know you're still available because your continued interest is the only thing standing between them and the crushing realization that they're absolute muppets who threw away something precious. Watch how they operate this insurance scam. They keep just enough contact to maintain your interest, but never enough to actually commit to anything. It's like a restaurant that keeps you waiting at the table, occasionally sending over a breadstick to keep you from leaving, but never actually serving the meal you ordered. They're emotional timeshare salespeople, keeping you invested while never delivering the promised vacation. The testing serves their psychological need for control in the most cowardly way possible. They want to feel powerful, like they have options, like they're the ones calling the shots even though they're the ones who screwed everything up in the first place. It's like a chef who burns the kitchen down, then asks if you'd still eat there if they decided to reopen. Absolutely mental. Their behavior is the relationship equivalent of keeping a restaurant reservation while eating somewhere else, hedging their bets in case the new place disappoints. They want the security of knowing their table is still available without actually having to show up and eat the meal. It's emotional double booking at its most selfish level. The insurance policy mentality reveals just how terrified they are of their own judgment. Every test is them asking, "Did I make the biggest mistake of my life?" But they're too proud and too scared to ask directly. Instead, they conduct these pathetic little experiments like they're testing if old milk has gone bad. Tentative, reluctant, and absolutely disgusting in their approach. What makes it even more tragic is that their testing actually ruins any chance of genuine reconciliation. By treating you like a backup plan, they've poisoned the well of any real connection. You can't rebuild trust with someone who's treating you like an insurance policy. It's like trying to cook a gourmet meal with ingredients they've already declared unfit for consumption. The final service, when you stop being available for their tests. Right. Now here's where you take control of this absolute disaster of a kitchen and show these emotional muppets what real standards look like. You want to know the secret ingredient to dealing with their pathetic testing behavior? It's called self-respect, and it's time you started serving it up in generous portions. Listen carefully, because this is where the whole bloody story changes. The moment you stop being available for their ridiculous games is the moment you become the head chef of your own emotional restaurant. No more sitting around like some desperate customer waiting for scraps from their pathetic breadcrumb service. You're closing their tab and opening your own 5-star establishment. When they send those pathetic 2 a.m. texts, you know what you do? Nothing. Let that message sit there like an overcooked steak nobody wants. When they try their stalking special, monitoring your every move, you live your brilliant life so fully that you don't even notice their creepy surveillance. You become so busy creating your own masterpiece that their amateur hour behavior becomes background noise. The most beautiful thing happens when you stop playing their testing games. They realize they've lost their favorite emotional toy. Suddenly, their insurance policy is cancelled. Their backup plan has left the building. And what do? They panic like a line cook who's just dropped the last order during dinner rush. But here's the genius part. By the time they realize what they've lost, you've already moved on to better things. You've discovered that life without their emotional manipulation is like upgrading from fast food to Michelin-starred cuisine. You've raised your standards so high that their pathetic offerings look like prison slop in comparison. You start attracting people who don't need to test your availability because they're too busy appreciating your presence. You find connections with people who order confidently from your menu instead of hovering around like indecisive customers who can't commit to a meal. Your emotional kitchen becomes a place where only serious diners are welcome. The transformation is absolutely magnificent. You go from being someone's backup option to being someone's first choice. You stop accepting breadcrumbs and start demanding the full feast. You realize that anyone who needs to test your availability doesn't deserve your availability in the first place. And when they inevitably come crawling back, because they always do, you're no longer the same person who was willing to accept their substandard service. You've developed a palate for quality, and their offerings taste like cardboard in comparison. You've learned to recognize the difference between genuine interest and manipulative testing. The most empowering realization is that their loss becomes your massive gain. Every moment you spent waiting for their approval was time you could have been building something extraordinary with someone who doesn't play juvenile games. You discover that being rejected by someone who tests people like lab rats is actually the universe doing you the biggest favor of your life. You become living proof that when one door closes, a better kitchen opens. Your energy shifts from reactive to proactive. Instead of responding to their tests, you're creating your own opportunities. Instead of waiting for their breadcrumbs, you're baking your own success story. The ultimate victory is when their testing behavior no longer affects you at all. Their attempts to probe your temperature get met with complete indifference because you're too busy living at your optimal emotional climate. They become like a restaurant critic whose opinion you no longer value because you found your own audience. You realize that the whole time you thought they were testing your worth, they were actually revealing their own complete lack of it. People who are confident in their choices don't need to constantly check if their rejected options are still available. Their testing behavior was never about you. It was about their own insecurity and poor decision-making skills. The brilliant ending to this whole disaster is that you become completely unavailable for their games while becoming completely available for genuine love. You stop being someone's insurance policy and become someone's main event. You graduate from being tested to being celebrated. And the most satisfying part? When they realize they've lost access to someone who's now completely out of their league. They understand they didn't just lose a backup plan, they lost someone who could have been their greatest success story. But by then, you're too busy writing your own happy ending to care about their regrets. That's how you win this game, by refusing to play it. You become so busy creating your own incredible life that their pathetic testing becomes irrelevant. You transform from someone who accepts leftovers to someone who only dines at the finest establishments. That is how you serve up the perfect ending to their emotional disaster.